Good morning, everyone. Seeing the hour of 9:30-ish, and the fact that we're not in Harrisburg, we're going to get rolling. I'm Representative Kerry Benninghoff. I chair the House Policy Committee, and we have embarked on a tour across Pennsylvania to try to learn what we can do better as a Commonwealth, and maybe what we are doing well in areas of economic development and growth, predominantly job growth, obviously. What regulatory things, maybe tax policies that are hindering, and most importantly, learn from those of you on the front line that do this on day-to-day operation. You got a good panel of members here. These guys are good leaders in Harrisburg and as well as their local areas. And I like the fact that they put this together, specifically Matt Dowling and some of his colleagues who really wanted us as the leadership team to hear a little bit more what's going on in your own local area and some of the success stories that you've had. So thank you very much for having the House Majority Policy Committee here to your beautiful community. And for a moment, I'm going to turn to Matt for opening comments, and then I'm going to ask the members to go from left to right and introduce themselves and where they're from. Representative Dowling.
Thank you, Chairman. Just quickly, I would like to welcome everyone to the 51st Legislative District. My district covers the lower parts of Fayette County and Somerset County, and today is part of a larger event which we're titling 2020 Vision for PA. And we're looking really at what we need to do over the course of the next 2 years to look for a successful and prosperous 2020 in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. We also have the House Transportation Committee, which is in the region. They're in Charleroi this morning. All of our attendees will be joining the Fayette County Tourism Alliance this afternoon to look at a number of public and private partnerships throughout the area that have helped stimulate the economy and growth primarily in the tourism industry. And then we will have some additional hearings with transportation tomorrow in the Fayette County area. So I think everyone who's been a part of this 3-day summit, which we are kind of officially kicking off this morning with this hearing. We're going to talk today about economic growth, and very early on into my first term, I was at a meeting with my colleague Representative Warner, who's with us today, and Representative Warner serves the district just north of me. And we were talking with a group that was looking for some help, and I believe that they came to us looking for some type of financial assistance. And the truth of the matter is, many times with the way we have our state budget set up, we don't have the ability to put large amounts of money into projects. Although we are able to support some different projects and policy, the biggest thing we can do is reform regulations and go through that regulatory reform where it costs you less to do business or to run your organization. And I remember Representative Warner asking that this person get back to us with what are the stifling regulations that are hurting your business or your organization, and that could be a starting place. I will tell you that I've picked up on that trend and asked that at pretty much every meeting that I have with individuals. We don't always get an answer back, but sometimes we do, and when we do, that's a great place for us to launch off and see how we can improve the economy by reducing regulations that can be stifling to business. So that's really what our theme today is going to be discussing. And I thank all of our testifiers and again, my colleagues for being here as part of our 2020 Vision Summit. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Dowling. We appreciate you and your great staff hosting us. I will start to my left and ask Representative Ryan to introduce himself and where he's from, and we'll end with our esteemed senator.
Thank you, Chairman Benninghoff and Representative Dowling for hosting this event today. I am Representative Ryan Warner. I represent the 52nd District in Fayette, Westmoreland counties.
49th District, parts of Fayette, Washington County, the Mon Valley, State Rep Bud Cook.
Representative Kerry Benninghoff. I am from Center County, home of Penn State Nittany Lions, in Mifflin County area.
Representative Eric Nelson, Westmoreland County, the 57th District.
Representative George Dunbar, 56th District, Western Editor of Westmoreland County, the good part of Westmoreland County.
Senator Pat Stefano, I want to thank my colleagues for coming into the heart of my district. And you guys from the other side of the building, we work together. I know we're all working for economic development, but I say, as we work together, teamwork makes the dream work. So I'm here to make sure we are working as a team. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I just want to thank Senator Stefano for his support and for being with us today. It does take both chambers. Also, I saw walk into the body of our room this morning one of our county commissioners, Mr. Dave Lord. Dave, we want to thank you for being here. We delight in being able to partner with our county officials and having them help serve you as well. Thank you.
Very good. Our first panel, we will start off with Mariel Nuttall, the Fayette Chamber of Commerce, and John Andersky from Highlands Hospital. You two can choose which way to go in order, but my mother would say females first. So without further ado, we will open that up. We're going to have both of you share your comments, and then the members will ask questions rather than doing it independently.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you very much for being here.
Good morning, and on behalf of the membership of the Fayette Chamber of Commerce, welcome to beautiful Fayette County. We are very pleased to have you here today, and we hope you'll find your trip to be both informative and relaxing. I know that today you will travel our countryside and visit many of the sites that have been a part of the building of this great nation, as well as locations that have made an impact on the world of art and architecture, and we hope you enjoy every moment of your trip. My name is Muriel Nuttall, and for the last 20 years, I have had the privilege of working alongside our business community as Executive Director of the Fayette County Chamber of Commerce. Allow me to take just a minute to tell you a little bit about the Fayette Chamber. This is a very dynamic group of about 630 businesses and individuals who have chosen to band together to build a stronger and more prosperous business community in Fayette County. The membership includes our smallest mom and pop businesses, those crucial nonprofits in our community, and the largest corporations in the area. This group is very diverse, coming from different backgrounds with differing goals, but together they form this wonderful, exciting, energetic, optimistic team united to build a better Fayette County. I also consider myself privileged to have been invited to speak with you all today. As a diverse organization, the Fayette Chamber has a robust program of action that directs our activities in many areas of importance to our businesses. Of course, member marketing and advocacy are two of them, but by far, the issue that has become of primary importance to our organization, rising in importance daily, in fact, is workforce development. This issue came into the limelight in Fayette a long time ago, but about 6 years ago, particularly when, through a survey to my membership, we found that by far the biggest challenge that our employers were facing on a daily basis was finding, hiring, and keeping qualified, skilled employees. The need was dire. We immediately worked to refocus our programming in an effort to ensure that our employers had the ability to build a workforce that would allow them success and growth. Through the Chamber's associated nonprofit, which is the Redstone Foundation, the Fayette Business Education Partnership was born. This arm of the Fayette Chamber is solely focused on programming that enables our students and residents to obtain family-sustaining employment right here in Fayette County. A couple of weeks ago, I spent the day at a retreat for our region's Workforce Development Board. At the onset of the meeting, we were first asked to reflect, each of us, on the current workforce situation. One of the gentlemen immediately replied in a way that summarizes things beautifully. He said, "If we had 100 of our colleagues in the room right now, 50 would say that they couldn't find employees, and the other 50 would say that they couldn't find jobs. We need to find ways to bring them together." Exactly. Next, we were asked to solve that problem, our opinions. So my response was the reasons I'm sitting before you today. And I understand that what I'm asking may not be directly in your purview, but I know that you all are out there every day talking to your colleagues about the issues that can make an impact on the Commonwealth, about how to make Pennsylvania better, stronger, more vital. Well, here it is, at least from my vantage point. On December 10th, 2015, President Barack Obama signed the Every Student Succeeds Act, called ESSA, which reauthorizes the Elementary and Secondary Education Act of 1965. Developed and passed with bipartisan support, ESSA replaced No Child Left Behind as the nation's main education law. For Pennsylvania, ESSA presents two important opportunities: the chance to move away from prescriptive policies and unintended consequences of No Child Left Behind and toward state-level efforts that enjoy bipartisan support, including more equitable and predictable funding for public schools and valid measures of school performance that look beyond standardized tests. Pennsylvania also requires that all school districts have a K-12 school counseling plan as part of Chapter 339. This plan addresses the importance of career planning for all students related to labor market projections and workforce needs. In the workforce world, the work that we do, these two together seem to be a great launching pad for a stronger focus on preparing our young people, not just to graduate from high school, but to create a vision for life beyond those school hallways, a vision for a prosperous, family-sustaining, tax-paying, civically engaged way of life. The governor has also created a solid investment in the workforce conversation in our schools through business education partnership grants, investment in apprenticeship and pre-apprenticeship programs, and more. This is all welcome, and I do believe it's making great change in our communities. And I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge that our own business education partnership is part of this change, as we are recipients of a portion of those grant dollars. But less than 2 years ago, the PA Chamber surveyed their membership and found the following when it comes to employers in the Commonwealth. 52% say that recruiting candidates is very difficult or extremely difficult. 57% believe that it will get even more difficult to find candidates in the next 5 years. 56% have difficulty filling technical or skilled positions. Only 21%, that's only 1 out of every 5 of our employers, rank the labor force as excellent or even good. There's $189 million lost each year in productivity or just in training of new employees. So sometimes I look at numbers like that and I see them as rather innocuous, just numbers from anonymous businesses all over Pennsylvania, but it's not my case. I'm here today to tell you that the businesses that are members of the Fayette Chamber of Commerce, those businesses that I talked about earlier who are diverse, coming from different backgrounds with differing goals, but together form this wonderful, exciting, optimistic, energetic team, united to build a better Fayette County, those businesses are desperately in need of employees. They need human capital. So I'm here to say to you that the things that are happening, the programs that are starting and the dollars that support them, they're all good. And thank you for any level of support that you've put behind them. But I'm also here to say that it's not enough. At the Fayette Chamber and through the Fayette Business Education Partnership, we are literally working our butts off with our schools and those businesses who want to be a part of the solution. But we're not there yet. And we're not able to move fast enough with the current support that's in place to give our employees a chance to grow and prosper. Pennsylvania, all of Pennsylvania, has a workforce need. But Western Pennsylvania, we're in a workforce crisis. Bottom line, I need to be able to get employees into the doors of my business members. Their futures depend on it. It's the difference between success and failure for a business. I met with an employer just the other day that needs 400 employees by year's end. 400 employees with a starting wage of $11 an hour. That's a training wage, all full-time positions, and they're struggling. So what was my answer? How would I solve the problem? Well, in short, I simply said that we need to put more emphasis and perhaps more dollars into this workforce crisis. We need to not only incentivize our schools for good performance through ESSA, we need to award them in even greater ways when they grasp the reality of the long-term benefits of 339 and intentionally work to put their students on a path to success, not just to the cap and gown, but to get the family, the house, the car, the future that will make Pennsylvania shine. And in this process, we need to engage the parents and figure out more ways to do that. Help them be the role models of the right way to live, demand accountability and responsibility. And we need to find ways to help our business community when they invest their time and energies into helping solve the workforce problem, not just complaining about it. You will all get the opportunity to travel through this beautiful county today. You'll see what we consider to be the gems of the Laurel Highlands. This beauty lies in a stark dichotomy to our economic situation in Fayette. We have really good people. We have excellent businesses. We have the beauty of nature, and yet we're struggling to bring our unemployed population into the multitude of our open positions. So what I'm asking of you today is simple. Just think about these communities and consider the good things that are happening in trying to make change, and help us think of ways to do different things to move forward. Great things will surely happen, but we need your help. Thank you.
Thank you. I first want to thank Senator Pat Stefano and Representative Ryan Warner of our district for the assistance they've provided in allowing us to secure some grant funding to provide additional economic development. Specifically, an RACP grant to develop a Women's Center of Excellence in a former elementary school building that we purchased. In addition to that, and that construction will begin here in a few weeks. In addition to that, we have a Department of Human Services grant that constructed in that same building a blended care model program, and which would be an initiative to bring in behavioral health, primary care, gynecology, diabetes care into one area so that the patient will access the care that they need without having to leave their primary care physician and go out and look to access that care on their own. That school also proudly houses our Highlands Hospital Regional Center for Autism, which is in collaboration with the Cleveland Clinic Children's. That development of that program took that current student population of 16 or 17, which was at capacity at its previous location, now brings that capacity up to 72 students. We immediately opened the doors with 24 students, and we're pretty much adding a student every week. The growth of that program is only going to be as quickly as we can get the staff to provide the services, which is a challenge. But that economic development is a positive impact to the hospital. But some of our challenges, which are endless, and I have to focus on one or two specific, because those challenges we can be here all day to discuss what those challenges are. But as most of you are probably aware, the independent community hospitals across the state of Pennsylvania have declined significantly. I believe from approximately 160 to now just 33 of us. There's reasons for that, and some of those reasons are that the small community hospitals just cannot sustain themselves. First of all, they can't access the nurses shortages out there are real. They can't get the staff in that they need. But in addition to that, the reimbursement models are not sufficient for these small community hospitals to sustain themselves. Specifically, what I would like to make mention of today would be behavioral health services. We provide the only inpatient behavioral health services within the state of Pennsylvania. I've recently tried to get the reimbursement level from the state, the per diem rate specifically, increased to at least approach our costs. And 60 to 70% of that patient population actually are paid through the medical assistance program. That rate was frozen back in 2008. There's a state plan amendment 08-003 that restricts the Department of Human Services from providing us with an appropriate rate increase. That needs to be changed. In order for us to sustain that program, which employs probably 30 to 40% of our workforce and is vital to the continued success of the organization, that rate needs to be changed. That amendment needs to be retracted or replaced. And that is just one specific area that I would like to bring to the attention of the committee. And I know that
Many of you are probably in districts that have other small independent community hospitals that continue to survive, one of those 33 possibly. But we're forced to look at other opportunities to sustain ourselves in an effort to continue to provide necessary health care to the communities that we serve. So I appreciate the invitation here today, and if there's any questions, I'd be welcome to hear them.
Thank you both, and I appreciate you taking a moment to publicly acknowledge the efforts of Representative Dowling and Senator Stefano. They're young in their careers, but they're pretty aggressive at fighting for your county, and I think that's nice you took a moment to honor that. We'll start off with questions. I believe Bud Cook, Representative Cook, has a question.
Muriel, you and I have talked before, and if the numbers that I'm hearing are correct, the Mon Valley at the heart is like 75 miles from the cracker plant in Beaver, the second proposed plant in Ohio. And over again, we hear we're going to be about 80,000 trade jobs short in the coming years. And I think many of us on this panel had the opportunity to visit with the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, and they have a tremendous program. It's Earn While You Learn. It's a 5-year program. They come in. They work Monday through Thursday and then training on Fridays. When they finish that program, they start at $79,000 with no debt. So my question is, we hear it over and over again, whether it's employers or the unions, they can't find good qualified people. So is there anything, we've proposed that we start a training for the trades program at the middle school. It seems like when we did the tours in SHOP and home ec, as I remember them, are non-existent anymore. And the career path is great for college, but there's also these other trade jobs. So thoughts on that?
You're exactly right. We have been, a couple of different ways I want to answer that. The workforce conversation within the schools has broadened dramatically, and you know that well, over the past couple of years. The funding that has been made available most recently through the Department of Labor and Industry has a very specific focus on apprenticeship and pre-apprenticeship programs. So the challenge right now is getting the organizations in place to really get that moving forward, and getting the buy-in from the school districts to really put that 339 plan in place and make it a priority in the schools. It's hard when their funding is tied to success in ESSA, and 339 is a part of the plan, where that career pathways process through 339, putting that in priority position, I think would make ESSA work well, on its own. It's just kind of a different way of looking at things. So it's the first thing I wanted to say. The dollars that are coming now through for organizational support to do STEM training and apprenticeship programs, it's good, and it is continuing. We just had there's a couple of processes out there that we're looking at now. But I wanted to mention, just in that arena, the Fayette Business Education Partnership is very heavily involved in that specific kind of training. In fact, it just happens that today, before I came here, I was at Penn State Fayette, where we had middle school students from 4 counties come in for a pure, we call it STEAM. The arts are very important, so we always put the arts in there, but a pure STEAM process where we teach middle schoolers about hydraulics and pneumatics. And then in about 6 weeks, they actually build a mechanical arm today, and in 6 weeks they come back and compete. And that's the process we're in right now, going into our schools, trying to work with our students to make them understand how important these jobs are and how lucrative they are. It's about family-sustaining career pathways. And there's a lot of work going on in that area, and I really think in the next few years you'll see really a big difference. I know I've seen it. This is the 5th year for our Fluid Power Challenge, and it's just one of the programs that we do focused on those types of careers.
We've had a really good response from unions in participating with that.
Absolutely,
So
and
I'd
the
like to
school
point
districts
that
as
out,
well.
and thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Very good. Representative Eric Nelson, then Representative George Dunbar.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I question going back to the issue of the limited available workforce. Even this morning before the hearing, I was talking with a caterer who was having the same struggle. He said right now I could hire 10 people, and showed me his calendar for this coming weekend and how many people he was short, and they're paying $14 to $16 an hour for servers. I wonder, when I hear of the graduates that are leaving some of these technical programs, and there's such opportunities, whether it's in trades or machining or welding, and I think the state has done a good job of enhancing funding for those programs. I wonder, are we beginning to fight against ourselves between Westmoreland County and our hospital system looking for hundreds of people, and our, machine shops looking for hundreds of people, and the counties should begin to work together into recruiting people from outside the area, because it seems there are incentives right now in Pennsylvania for people not to work. And so the employers that are getting these graduates of the program, many of them have the requirement to pass a drug test and to show up on a consistent basis, and these are major struggles. Do you feel that in order for Pennsylvania to better embrace the abundant side of it, that on the bigger picture, our county should begin to market Western Pennsylvania as a place who's hiring for jobs and families, and we start to look outward to try to find some of these quality people or veterans that are getting out of the service and looking to go, a way to be able to increase the funnel of job applicants?
Just as an example of counties working together, Westmoreland County Behavioral Health Administration was in connection with Value Behavioral Health, or Beacon Health. They provided us through the state with funding for an extended acute care behavioral health unit. We're going to be meeting with them in a couple weeks. That construction is ongoing now. It's supposed to be completed by December. That will employ 30 to 40 additional staff at the hospital. We'll be working with them over the next few weeks to begin the recruitment process to recruit that staff, because we know that's going to be a bit of a struggle as well. But yeah, I do think that we need to, in a global world, we need to kind of break down the barriers of borders, and that not just on a state-to-state level in healthcare, but county to county as well. We do compete with, for example, we compete with facilities that we actually collaborate with in the recruitment of nursing staff. We cannot afford major sign-on bonuses that others might be able to afford. So if that needs to be a discussion, that something needs to come out of that. We need to begin working more closely together.
We are very fortunate in Fayette, the Westmoreland Fayette Workforce Investment Board, very dynamic, very much involved in this workforce conversation in both counties, and that's kind of my realm of knowledge with the Workforce Board, because we do so much in the two counties. But I have to agree with you 100%, kind of hanging a sign up that says, hey, we've got jobs here. I would be good with that.
I wonder if there are discussions on the commissioners, marketing and tourism ties in with jobs and families and economic development, but Westmoreland alone can't sustain the amount of dollars needed to run a successful campaign, and maybe we look to try to break down the silos of tourism and economic development and partner with multiple counties to, get some good quality workers. So I appreciate your feedback. Thank you.
Great questions and answers. Representative Dunbar, then Representative Matt Dowling.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And first off, I do appreciate what you're talking about as far as workforce development and in the bigger picture, economic growth. 1% of economic growth to us in Pennsylvania is $320 million. That's making our budget decisions a lot easier, to tell you the truth. So we're on board. But we've been talking about this for 8 years that I've been in the House, we've been talking about, marrying our education to our workforce development. And I don't know if we've ever actually moved anywhere in that regard. And the other problems that we see, I see my schools, a lot of schools, they want to tell you how well they're doing as far as placing kids in four-year institutions. And we have this desire to be so successful that the only way you're successful is if you go to a four-year school. And we put a lot of kids through school, and they come out with a lot of student debt, and they ended up working for me at my plumbing company years ago. Are we moving anywhere? It seems like, we talk about it quite a bit, but are we truly moving anywhere towards having the marriage between the employees and the schools to understand of what we really need? And secondly, also, Mr. Andreska had mentioned about the nursing shortage. We have similar problems in Westmoreland County as well, but what we have done there is the University of Pittsburgh-Greensburg essentially started a nursing program. They're working directly with the health system, Excella Health System. Do you have anything like that going on down here to truly marry the two together?
Yes, we do work with Laurel Business Institute. We work with Seton Hill on some programs as well. So yes, we do work directly with the schools to recruit that way, and it's been rather successful.
And have you seen any changes, at least as far as from the K through 12 level, in helping to develop the workforce development we need?
Yes, with an exclamation point. The Fayette Business Education Partnership, we're just a little over 5 years old. When we started the partnership, really was kind of before a lot of the conversation started in the way it is at state level. But we knew that we had this crisis and we had to figure out a way to put these pieces together. It only makes sense. So, I'm in a fortunate position where I was there in the original conversations about how do we get this thing started and what do we do. So I also was a part of the initial conversations with the schools. It took time to see the changes for 339 come into place, for the requirements to happen with 339, for the schools to put the counselor organizations together. We were fortunate here. We were able to provide some financial support through the WIB board and a United Way to bring our schools together to build 339 plans. So Fayette County actually had completed 339s before a lot of the areas. Now we only have 6 school districts, and I say that because I work with Westmoreland County all the time, and it's a bigger conversation in Westmoreland. There are many, many more school districts to bring to the table. So same work over in Westmoreland through the WIB board. Little bit different level of partnership because there are just so many more school districts, and I do want to acknowledge that. I'm lucky I have 6, so I can bring those 6 together pretty easy. Have I seen that conversation change? 1,000%. When has that happened? The last 18 months, 24 months. Those first 3 years were baby steps, trying to build trust. It's hard to go into a school and say, hey, we want to bring businesses in, So we built the partnership kind of with a model that said, we're here so that our business community understands the constraints of the education system, but our education system needs to understand the constraints of the business community, and then we need to build a conversation of how do we bring them together. So baby steps. We're walking a little faster now, though. Definitely seen change.
Thank you. That is encouraging because it's frustrating from our level as well. It seems like we all agree what the problem is.
I know.
But we're not getting anywhere. But that's encouraging here.
We are. It's exciting right now, the changes.
I'm going to take Chairman's prerogative and throw something on top of that a little bit. We've talked a lot about workforce development. We talked about different businesses and the focus groups. I'm interested. I drive around and I see more help wanted signs than I've ever seen. We hear some, I don't want to call it wage wars, but we see competition within the wages now, driving the wages up for different things. And yet there seems to be this vacuum of not having enough workers. The question I have is, has there been focus groups talking to people who say they can't find jobs or some of the job training areas to say to them, what is it that your expectations are? Why is it that you don't have a job when I drive around and see all these signs? Maybe it's, I would think that we have more flexibility in the workforce than we used to as far as people being able to leave for child issues, and it's not as regimented as it would have been in industrial years where you just went into your place and you worked 12 hours and you didn't leave until you were done. I'm just curious of what angle or approach there may have been actually talking to people that are looking for work. Just seems to be a little disconnect there somewhere.
That's a big question.
I know it's a big guy.
It is, and it's one that we struggle with regularly. In fact, remember I mentioned if we put 500 colleagues in a room, you get that conversation. There are some wage wars happening out there where we watch this minimum dollar rise almost daily, feels like. So I'll give you a good example. We were at 3 businesses last week. These are 3 manufacturing businesses, and each of them had raised their starting wage to between 14 and 16 an hour, and those changes were made within the past few months. because they
What
need to
skill level
compete.
jobs was that?
Really, entry, basic math, soft skills in these manufacturing. We hear the soft skills conversation all the time.
So do we, correct.
Yeah, so we're really working through the partnership, through all of our avenues, not just the Business Education Partnership, but through organizations like Community Action here and the Private Industry Council, all of us that do workforce, trying to constantly react to those needs and have those conversations with our employers. Is there still some imbalance between what they're asking for and what we can provide? Yes, and we're trying to work through that. Sometimes we have businesses who will have what we can think of as an entry-level job, and this is exaggerating, understand, but they'll ask for a master's degree to do that. And it's somewhat common. So we are working through all of those different avenues to try to bring those pieces together. Again, thinking about why the partnership was created, so that each side kind of understood what the other needed, so that we could find common ground. So we're not only doing that in the schools, but we're trying to do that in the workforce community as well. It's not a problem that's solved yet.
When you talk about the soft skills, just for those that aren't in the room and maybe not using these industry technology terms, what specifically were they looking for? What is it they feel it's lacking in the workforce that they don't have in those so-called soft skills?
Basic work ethic, teamwork, communication, interpersonal skills. You can teach specific industry skills.
Correct.
You cut this at this point, but to teach someone how to come in and talk easily and pick up a phone and make a phone call and how to communicate, that's a little bit different. And we see, not just here, but nationwide, we see a need for building of soft skills training. And I know that everything we do now, we have that soft skills component.
And last part of that is there's an issue with retraining. You may have somebody comes in and says, I want a job, and then you find that they lack these skills or even just communication still. But what about their own commitment to stay at work, come to work, be on time? I guess would be vested interest in the job itself.
Right, work ethic,
Is that a struggle?
yes.
Okay. I mean, it seems to me if we have more and more signs going up, people advertising for jobs, you have wages driving each other up in competition for those workers. It's almost a worker smorgasbord to choose where you want to be, and yet we have employers who will get someone barely to the probationary period time that they just don't come back.
Right.
Or they get the first paycheck and they don't come back. And that's, to me, is a tremendous challenge that's not easy to coach.
No, it is not. And you are exactly right. We do, we have an issue with work ethic, and that's one of the reasons that from the chamber perspective and the partnership perspective, we're working in the schools to try to kind of rebuild some of that thought process and kind of training with our students so that they understand the importance of the work ethic when they graduate, and that we do indeed have family-sustaining good jobs here in the area. it is a struggle.
And I'll close on that. And I play this game with my staff sometimes. If they were king for a day, what would you do to change that? But you look back at your own career path, and in my own, I just don't ever remember that being a major issue. Most of us were hungry. Let's get a job. And if you didn't like the job you had and you didn't make enough money, then you changed jobs. I remember being out in the cold, freezing, doing construction jobs for $3 an hour. And I chose to go into a hospital and work, and I learned a lot of tremendous opportunities there. The wages were different, the benefits were different. I find it very difficult now talking workforces and having them appreciate the value of all those things.
My suspicion is that you were raised in a family similar to what I was, where I had 2 working parents. My family owned a business from the time I was in, 4th grade. I had responsibilities at that business. It was a family business. That meant we all, I would sweep floors and restock bags,
Sure.
whatever. But it was an expectation, so that was normal for me. It was normal that I would finish high school and, I went to college and got a degree, and don't know that I ever thought at that point I'd end up with 20 years in a nonprofit, but I've loved every minute of it. We all have a different career path. But the situation we run into in this area is we come up with students who don't have those role models. They have parents who maybe haven't worked consistently. Representative Dowling might laugh, maybe Senator Stefano. I call it my carrot theory. Like, the carrot that we had is different for students who don't have working parents. The process wasn't put in front of them the way it was perhaps for us. And that's the challenge that we're up against in our schools. Any workforce programming that we do, if we have a group of students, parents come into the conversation, we always make that conversation twofold. We talk to the students about what their career path can be and what we can do for them, but we always step back and say, hey, parents, are you working? Do you need skills? How can we help you, so that we can try to change that conversation and put those role models in place? That was my remarks about accountability and responsibility, and making sure that our parents out there are the role models that they need to be to get our students employed.
Well,
We're kind of rebuilding that work ethic.
I applaud your effort on that. It probably was not very easy to do, but I do appreciate your candor and your answers. I think Representative Warner, and then Representative Dowling has a question.
Thank you, Chairman Benninghoff. You guys bring up your discussion there. You brought up a good point about the generational difference between work ethic. And I don't know, so I'm asking. I'm sure we could find out. But do you know off the top of your head what the employment rate is, or how much it has changed from kids that are 16 to say 20, the younger people? It seems like as time goes on, there's less younger people, 16, 17, 18, that are currently working jobs, that start getting out in that work environment at a younger age, getting acclimated to it, and getting that hunger, getting a paycheck, saying, yeah, this is what I want to continue and I want to expand, whether it be just serving ice cream at the Dairy Queen, or of course when we were younger, every high school kid had a job pumping gas, or and 2, do you know if there are less there are less people that age working, and are there less jobs in that area that age group would work in?
I don't have those numbers specifically, although I'm interested in as well, and we'll track those down over the next few days and certainly share them with all of you. Couple of different angles on that. Our young population is so much different than before, in that they're busy in a different way. When I was young, I was perhaps involved in 1, maybe 2 activities or organizations. I have 3 children, and I run crazy trying to keep up with different sports activities. And so part of that 16 to 18 is that their attentions are elsewhere. But part of it is also that those jobs tend to be filled with older folks that want to work and supplement income. And if you have, I suspect, as an employer, the opportunity to hire someone who may not be able to work Tuesdays and Thursdays and Saturday mornings, and someone who says, I'll be there to work for you, that job may go to that older person. But again, it's changing the conversation back in the schools. And again, it's baby steps.
Yeah, and look, I think on the panel that we've all agreed and just discussed this gap, this skills gap, and I think you'd mentioned having 50 employers or 50 employees in a room and saying 50 of them saying I can't find a job and the other saying I can't find employees. And I just want to kind of share my personal experience with that. And we talk about education. I want to stress the importance of the role in education and closing that gap. I grew up working, our family had a small logging business, so I grew up working in a sawmill, okay? My dad did not attend college at his age. He grew up a farmer, and at that time, he said, look, most people my age didn't consider college because you had a good job in a coal mine or the steel mill. And he went out and worked in a steel mill. After steel mills closed, he started a logging business. He did not attend a four-year college. My mother had an associate's degree, so no one in my family had a bachelor's degree. And it was pressed into me, growing up working in that sawmill. My dad would purposely work me hard because he wanted me to go to college. So you have to go to college, And so I went to Penn State Fayette, and then I transferred to Penn State main campus, and I graduated with a degree in communications. And by all means, that experience, we'll never regret that. It was great. I learned a lot. However, outside of college with a communications degree, my first job was in finance. That had nothing to do with communications. I spent 4 years of college learning about communications and started at Siemens Industry in the finance department, worked my way up to become a commercial project controller. And I learned finance because I was trained within that company, learned from other people. And I think I came out of college with thousands and thousands of dollars of debt because my family was not a wealthy family and my parents did not pay for my college. So I had to take out student loans, and so I got a degree in communications. I go work in finance for a good corporation that was an hour away. I lived in Perryopolis, so an hour away from where I live. And you mentioned that you have these other jobs that are available, but when you just have $100,000 in student loans and you got a degree in communications, well, you want to go work in communications. And you don't think, well, I'm going to go, I did spend all this time, Bud had mentioned about the electrical workers union. Well, I don't want to go through this program now. I just spent 4 or 5 years of my life and $100,000 to go through college. I want to work on this job. And until you finally do find something, maybe it's not in the area, and then you leave. The point that I'm trying to get to, and we have mentioned it here before, is that I think that our society and a whole in our education system, not just in this area, I mean, our whole country has been tailored to, you need to go to high school and you need to go to college, okay? Well, people are going to college and they're getting degrees in communications, art history, and whatever else, and I'm not knocking them, anyone that wants to do that, and then you come out and say, well, I can't find a job. And then you have all these people saying, well, we have all these good high-paying jobs here. And I think about being in high school where, our shop program was basically non-existent. So, little Johnny never even got that experience to see, well, wow, I like working with steel, I like working with wood, or to know that he liked that, or that that they were good at it. And, right now we have, I think it was the first time in our economy that we have more people, more jobs available than people seeking jobs that are currently on unemployment. I mean, that's just staggering. So it's not just our area that is experiencing this. There's 6 million unfulfilled jobs nationwide. I'm very happy that the president had announced the initiative into the apprenticeship program, wanting to go from 500,000 currently in the country to over 5 million, investing money into it, and cutting regulations to make apprenticeships I just want to note in a comment, I think it's important that we start taking blue-collar jobs very seriously. There are a lot of good-paying jobs that are out there that people do not have the skills for. And I think in our education program, I know my daughter comes home every night with math or science homework. There's not history home. There's nothing. It's just we've tailored our education system: math, science, test math, science, test math, science, test math, science. Well, anything else? Well, I want her to bring home history homework or civics so that I could help out with that. But the point being, with the president announcing this apprenticeship program, that we have a plan in Fayette County to get our businesses here on the forefront of this, to take this head on, because I think that we should take it by the reins and run with this and make this a very big initiative in Fayette County.
Absolutely, we do. And again, working back in the schools and building those pre-apprenticeship pieces, that work is happening. We have changed the entire conversation from, you're correct, it used to be you go to high school, you go to college. We don't talk that way anymore. We talk about post-secondary training, which is very important, and that can be, I talked to this about the middle schoolers this morning before I left over at Penn State, and I talked about how for some people that's a 4-year degree, some of it's a 2-year degree, sometimes it's a certificate, sometimes it's training. There are so many opportunities out there. Yes, post-secondary education is important, but it doesn't always mean the college degree. I also have a communications degree, so I get it. When you graduate with that degree, it's pretty broad. You're using communication, I do. So it's all good. But yeah, we have very specifically changed that, the verbiage that we use. We want it, as parents, you want to look at your kid and you want to say you can be anything you want to be. It's built into us. We want that for them. And I've laughed a lot. I used to have 2 sons, and I used to say to them when they were younger, you can be anything you want to be as long as it's a plumber or an electrician. Because you will turn down more work than you'll ever be able to do, and you'll pretty much set your own rate. And those are still true today. Okay, didn't really get there with the first one, but I have another one coming. Cybersecurity, so that's my new conversation with him about cybersecurity. But I think that's a conversation we have to change with parents too, and making parents understand every parent wants their child to do different or better than they did. Again, that's just part of parenting. So it's a part of changing the conversation and making them understand what the opportunities are.
Thank you. John, Mira, I want to thank you both so much for being here today and everything that both of you do for our county. Thank you.
Thank you.
Representative Dowling.
Muriel, I have stolen that line because I have 2 sons, and I tell them that they can be an electrician or a plumber as well. I want to refer to an article, Muriel, that we've discussed before, and it was in the Post-Gazette in June of this year. And for my colleagues, I apologize. I didn't know we would go this far down the workforce development path, or I would have sent this article to you previously. The title was Vanishing Rural Workforces, Workforce in County, Vanishing Rural Workforce, County Employers Struggle to Fill Jobs. And the article went on to talk about many of the things that we've discussed today. I do feel in some ways it was a hit piece on Fayette County. And then it was editorialized several days later by their editorial board, again hitting on Fayette County. I would be of the opinion that many of our rural counties throughout the Commonwealth struggle with the same issues. It's not just us. But as an advocate for Fayette County, quite frankly, it upset me. One of the things that they did say, though, and I believe that it has some credence, is that millennials, people born between 1981 and 1996, now comprise the bulk of the U.S. labor force and their preference for urban living, only making matters worse in places like Fayette County where jobs go unfulfilled. My question to either of you. John, you as an employer that is working with more millennials, and Muriel, with your experience in workforce development, the programs that you're doing, how do employers need to rethink the way that they work with their employees, or the expectation that they have of employees, now that the millennial generation has moved into taking over the majority of the jobs in our workforce? And is there a conversation to be had about how to employ millennials rather than simply to continue to expect the same things we expected from the boomers and previous generations?
In healthcare, one thing that I can think of would be giving opportunities to do jobs remotely. In healthcare, that's really not a possibility since you have to be hands-on caring for the patients. But there is an aspect of that that could possibly be true. I mean, we're doing remote chart coding, we're doing remote transcription, but it's very limited in healthcare. You mentioned, Representative Dowling, earlier about telemedicine, and telemedicine is another way that maybe some of the millennials may see that as an opportunity if they're in the healthcare field. But in healthcare, of course, we have a different dynamic. So we do see the same struggle, and I don't want to categorize it as millennials, but we do see the same struggles as far as those soft skills that we talked about earlier with employees that maybe we go through their hiring process, they come to orientation, and they leave, and we don't see them again. And it seems like there's no concern about gaps in their employment or other issues that could arise with a lack of those skills. Those skills, I think that the home is where they need to be really focused, and I think reaching out to the parents might be one way, but there may also be ways of getting the proper curriculum into our schools to kind of develop those skills, and I'm not sure that all schools are looking at that. They're looking more of math, science, engineering, as we talked, rather than focusing on some of those soft skills.
As much as we're having the conversation with the young people in the schools, we're having a similar conversation with the employer community, because I do think that the millennial generation in particular has a different set of expectations. It's kind of back to that concept that I talked about earlier, the two pieces of the partnership and why we did it in that way, to bring these groups together with workforce providers in the middle, so that each understands the expectation from the other. I do see businesses changing, trying to adapt to some of those millennial expectations. But in a lot of our businesses, like healthcare and manufacturing, they're not always able to do that. They need the hands on the floor. They need the human capital in the buildings. So I think that part of that conversation is adapting the thought process of the millennial generation as well. I think that there's a lot of different groups that need to come together to solve this, and conversation between the generations and the businesses. And it's harder for some of our older business owners to understand some of those technology changes, that so much happens now via text message. It's amazing to me, but that's also one of those communication soft skills that we talked about earlier. I do think that situation's out there. I see it every day. I'm not sure what the answer is.
If I could just kind of make a comment to follow up with you, and I think changing technology is huge and needs to be a part of this discussion. Also, I believe when we talk about millennials, if we want to use that word, the largest thing we're looking for is an expectation of flexibility in their personal and professional lives. I believe that we have become, and this isn't a belief, it's actually the truth. We've become a more global economy, and Fayette County, Somerset County, and the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania cannot live within their own vacuums. And we have to be able to do business in a faster way, but a way that allows flexibility for employees. John, telemedicine is a huge piece in your industry. I think also you've always had a little bit of that flexibility in that nurses can sometimes work 3 12-hour shifts rather than, and we could implement some of those things that we've already seen in scheduling in hospitals in things like manufacturing. And the more conversations I have with employers, the more I've seen that there's a reluctance to move beyond what the traditional 7 to 4 or 9 to 5 time frame is for employers. So just kind of my thoughts on how that conversation exists. But I think technology plays a huge role in remote access, whether it be through telemedicine or simply someone who's able to work from home 1 or 2 days a week, even though their office is only several miles away. So I thank you for your comments, and I know that you're working on many things that would refute those claims that were in that article, but I wanted to be able to give you a chance to mention what the things that you were working on.
Very good. Thank you. I just have two quick questions. Mr. Andreski, in healthcare, I think there's a perception by the general public that's all nursing jobs. What percentage of the jobs within your institutions are not hands-on nursing? Biomedics, et cetera, et cetera.
When you consider some of the ancillary services and the tech positions, and to keep them out of the mix of nurses, we probably
Ballpark.
I'm going to say 70% of our jobs are not nursing.
Say it again?
70% are not nursing.
Right. So if I'm a high school, post-college area, and I'm thinking, geez, when I work in a hospital, I think the perception is everybody walks around in white uniforms.
Yes.
When the reality is the support technical jobs that are there are tremendous, and the pay scale for those are tremendous as well.
Yes, that would be true.
Last thing to that, I was at my local vocational school the other day with the secretary of L&I, and they were talking about, so many people complain because everything's being replaced by robotics, and eventually you're going to go to McDonald's, you're going to probably be served by a robot. But what people don't understand is, while that server's job may have been replaced mechanically, there's 4 or 5 technical jobs that need to be available to take care of the robotics. They were telling me that these kids are coming out of our high schools, 17, 18, 19 years old, being offered jobs in robotic maintenance at 20 and 24. And I thought they meant 1,000 a year, and they said, no, an hour. Mm-hmm. I was building houses for less than $3 an hour coming out of high school. And I just don't think we do a very good job as a community overall, I don't want to point fingers at anybody in particular, it's explaining to people, at a time when these kids can find out anything they want to know on the internet, why aren't people able to research out beyond that? I just don't understand. I mean, maybe it's just a statement you don't need to answer for other people, but.
Just quickly with a new program that I
Sure.
think addresses that is come into place across the area here, I suspect across the Commonwealth. It kind of is an old model. When I started 20 years ago, we had these educator in the workforce programs.
Right.
We started this up again, and then Fayette County, Fayette and Westmoreland, we have teacher in the workplace programs. We brought a group of 25 teachers in last week to start our Fayette County piece and are focusing on healthcare and manufacturing. The reason that we are focused on the group of teachers, we chose them from core subject areas because they have the most one-on-one chance to talk to the students. And we are bringing them into healthcare organizations and manufacturing organizations across Fayette County. And the conversation with them is, like in the healthcare situation, it's not just doctors, it's not just nurses. Here are all of the careers available. What are the skill sets necessary? And then we are challenging them to build curriculum to take that back into their course areas in the high schools. In Fayette County, every single one of our high schools is participating, as is our CTC, Career and Technical Center in
Great.
Connellsville, and our CTI. So more programs like that are starting for exactly that reason, because you say to people, what are the jobs in healthcare, and you hear doctor, nurse, and it's much bigger, much broader
I
than
mean, it's
that.
an advertisement that sells itself.
It-
Healthcare is not just nursing.
Right, healthcare, it's a much bigger picture. So it'll be interesting to watch these 25 teachers over the next month or two and see how they formulate the curriculum and then build off that success. This is our pilot program in Fayette. We hope to expand it much, much bigger in the next year or so.
Well, you know, agriculture's been doing the ag in a classroom, and they actually teach kids about DNA
Yep.
and those types of things that I think all the different industries can do that.
Agreed.
I think Senator Stefano wanted to round out this panel. Save the best for the last, huh?
Well, I do have a simple question because I haven't heard it yet, and I can ask this of this panel. I do have to leave for sake of time, and I know we're way behind our time schedule. I thank all the panelists that'll be here, and then maybe they can answer this question themselves too when they come up. And we're talking about finding employees. The question is, are you finding that any of our government programs are hindering the reentry of capable workers? Long pause.
It's also a big question.
Yes.
I think it's one we have to ask, though.
We do still see cliff effect. And that would probably be the greatest issue that we deal with. We can bring people in and get them started. The employers are willing to do that onboarding cost, which is huge. But then some of the benefits that were in place that helped them through the process when they were unemployed start to go away. And the balance between the two, you know, employment's going to stay the same, wage per hour, but the benefits start to drop off. And it gets to a point where the imbalance is too great, and the employee then goes back onto unemployment. So that cliff effect, as we call it, conversation, it's a big conversation, but it's definitely a conversation that needs to be handled legislatively. We can do a lot from the workforce side here, but those programs, some of the policies in place, I don't have the answers for that, but I know it's something we struggle with every day.
Good question, great answer. We appreciate that. Well, to our panel, thank you very, very much for being here. I suspect the members will talk with you later if you're able to stay. If not, we understand you got lots to do, but we appreciate the work you're doing here in the community and for being here at the panel. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our second panel will be led by Ben Moyer of AC Moyer Company and Stephen Horanik and Mark Anthony of Horanik Corporation. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning. I'm Steve Horanik. Go ahead and start. Nice to meet
We'll start my left to right. Did you say you want to start, Steve?
you. Yeah.
We appreciate you guys being here. We're a friendly crowd. The goal is that we get to hear from you people in the front line doing the work.
Yeah, my name's Steve Horanik, and I'm with Horanik Sheet Metal. We're a local company, and this is Mark Anthony. He works with us. He's the Vice President of Manufacturing. We started a company about a little over 15 years ago. And basically, we started out doing construction work, HVAC. And then, you know, as we kept growing a little bit, we got into ductwork manufacturing. So kind of where we're at, you know, we grew basically from 1 or 2 employees to close to 200. And we manufacture square, rectangular, then, you know, we grew and added on and got into round and oval ductwork. And pretty much where we're at right now, we're going to add a new building with about 40,000 square foot. And I guess, looking at the whole scheme of things, we're probably just a peanut company in this, but I think the Fayette zoning and the commissioners of Fayette County have worked pretty well with us, helping us with this new project. And, kind of the four areas I guess we're kind of concerned about would be, first the building, which, we're going to be investing probably close to $2 million with that. And then going to the workers, we've also had a problem, filling jobs, but in the last few years, we've been working pretty close with the Fayette Vocational Tech School. So we've done pretty well bringing kids in, and they can weld, and then, of course, we have to add in the, training them on running different machines and stuff, but we haven't been too bad with that scheme of things. We've been a little short with accounting people, drafting people. I don't know, maybe where else you think? Estimators, maybe. Then, plus, not only putting the building up, we have to add sales in where Mark comes in. And then also putting equipment in the building, because we're looking at maybe 40, 50 jobs we can add, but that's probably our biggest struggles, trying to, get the funding for the equipment and stuff. And Fayette Penn Development also, has helped us and worked, with us, and that's about where we're at. So I don't know if you have some other stuff to add to that.
Yeah, we definitely need more workers, as Steve was saying, because we've grown a lot. The Union Hall's been really great, but we've kind of tapped out the Union Hall. So the more we can do at the high school level, like Steve was saying with the vocational school, we definitely need more help getting kids into that to get into the trade world. Other than that, we have a really great relationship with CareerLink. They've helped us with getting people in for like our estimating jobs, accounting jobs, and things like that. So we're definitely really appreciative of what all they've done to help us out.
Yeah.
And honestly, we're grateful for the Union Hall. They've been really great with us. They help us with like wage equalization, and sometimes just helps us get into some jobs that we couldn't get into before. So I think that's it for us, unless you guys have any questions for us.
We'll go with Ben, and then we'll
Okay.
go to questions.
Welcome to Fayette County, by the way. I'm here because I was president, and I say that somewhat poignantly because we just ceased to be a legal entity last week, of A.C. Moyer Company, which was a family business that we operated in Fayette and Greene counties primarily for decades. And but we also worked in southern Westmoreland, eastern Washington, western Somerset. We did asphalt resurfacing on municipal roads, rural municipal roads, townships, primarily boroughs. I very much enjoyed being a part of the community in that way and working with our municipalities and providing a needed service at a value. I believe that we worked at a value. You had to in order to get work, competitive work. I would like to say that from my observation, there is in Fayette County still a residual embedded work ethic that can be tapped. We had, in the last years of our business, we had 10 to 12 employees all the time. We're small, but I would like you to know that I would put their productivity up against anybody, anywhere. I'm immensely proud of them, of their dependability, flexibility, ability, their willingness to accept challenges, rise to unexpected obstacles with a cheerful disposition. I'm just so proud of them, and that can be tapped. we would take new people into our culture, which it was a culture of doing a lot of work with minimal resources, and new people would see the way our guys worked, the way I worked with them, and it seemed that they would rise to that. And we had pretty good rate of turning people into the kind of employee we needed to have in our lean, move around all the time, slim margin business. Now, our reasons for closing, I cannot honestly attribute that to overregulation or anything like that. It was personal and internal. I'm 66 years old now. We didn't have a succession possibility. So it was rational for us to close. I do have one issue that that's germane to this, that you may be able to deal with. We did, as I said, we worked mostly for municipalities, and most of their projects were through the liquid fuel program. Gas tax redistributed to municipalities for road work. But we also did projects through the Community Development Block Grant Program, which, as you know, is federal money that comes into the state, I believe it's the Department of Community and Economic Development, then distributed to local authorities for use in municipalities for infrastructure. I don't know what it is about that program. There's something about the conduit of funds from the federal to the state to the local to the person that does the work ultimately. It takes too long to get paid. And some companies, if they're larger, can absorb that, but small companies can't. And it's just a drain on your cash flow. There were many attractive projects in our work area that were exactly the kind of work we did that I really had to ask myself, can I afford to bid on that? As attractive as it is, and as right down our alley, so to speak, as it is, because I know it's going to take so long to get paid. So if there's something that you can do to address that flow of money somehow from the federal appropriation to the contracting and any ultimate payment, that would be a help to smaller businesses that can't carry that kind of unresolved balance. I'd also during my time here, I'd like to say that throughout my working life, I've had another parallel career. I'm a writer. I keep myself informed about natural resource issues and outdoor recreation issues. This is really my passion in life. But I hope that Representative Dowling has an opportunity to take you around Fayette County, because I'm immensely proud of it. I've been fortunate to get to a lot of different places, and I think this is just a wonderful place with its natural assets. And the Great Allegheny Passage, which passes through some of the Westmoreland County representative districts, is an internationally significant asset, internationally. So what I want to say is that I think that our natural resources, our streams, rivers, landscapes, is a built-in economic asset but needs support. It needs support from the Commonwealth for our staffs, for our state parks and state forests, for trail development. I just read a study last week from St. Vincent College on usage of the Great Allegheny Passage. It's about 1 million people a year now. And if I remember, about 42% of those every year are first-time users, which is significant. That means there's a lot of demand for it. It means there's a lot of demand for other trails. About 60% of those people are staying overnight in the region. So, this is really an engine that's in place. It just needs nurtured. Thank you.
Thank you three very much. Your candor is very helpful. I think your comments on the reimbursement is a significant kind of thing we need to hear. I'm sad to hear that, but I'm not overly surprised sometimes. Government has a good way of clogging everything up.
Yeah, Representative Dowling used the word stifling in his comments, and that's really what it was, because you had to, can I really afford to take
Sure.
this project on? Because it takes that long.
That's one of the reasons I got out of the construction business. You get tired of laying out all your own personal money to try to put money down to keep projects going to the next project, and you're always robbing Peter to pay Paul. A couple questions, starting with Representative Cook.
Ben,
Yes.
thank you very much for your testimony. I have the honor and pleasure of sitting on the Travel and Tourism Committee for the state. Travel and tourism is the second largest industry in the Commonwealth. It's a $40 billion industry a year. And you're spot on. Spot on. People are coming to Pittsburgh to stay overnight just to come to Falling Water. That's the number one reason they're coming to Pittsburgh, to stay over the weekend. So once we get them here, we just need to work harder. So here's my question to y'all. And Steve, you guys are not a small peanut. Small business is 50% of the engine, economic engine in this country, and hats off to you, because coming from a small business background, I get what you're doing. Here's my question. We spend an awful lot of time in the schools, and I have one question that I always ask the students. Who is your leadership role model? It cannot be an entertainer, and it cannot be a sports figure. So my question to you all is, who was that leadership role model that motivated you all down the career path that you all took?
I don't know, I'd probably have to say my dad. I'd probably have to say my dad, I guess.
Yeah, same with me, my mom and dad.
Ben family?
Yeah, my dad, and I'll say that I used to work for the Joint Legislative Air and Water Pollution Control Committee in Harrisburg. I didn't like that work. I don't know why I didn't like it. I also worked for DEP back before it became DCNR, and I worked for DER before. And for a long time, I resisted working in my family business. It wasn't the career path that I envisioned. But to get to your question, I came to see how much I admired my dad for the way he worked and developed that. I was very proud of him. And for my grandfather, who started it when he came out of the coal mine, started our business. So I'd have to say those two. And go ahead.
Yeah, here is the challenge, and I just did this at a school district. We had 10 or 12 students there, and out of those 12 students, only 2, one was God and one was grandfather, so there's a lot of family influence. My leadership role models happen to be World War II vets. And so, I think part of the solution to that role model, I mean, that's where you learn to work hard, that's when you learn the commitment and everything from that, your fathers and the people within your business. So I think, at least from my perspective, to solve that, we're trying to get those new veterans that are coming home, that next greatest generation, incorporated in there to provide leadership role models. Also, what I'm hearing today is I would love to see you guys go into a middle school and tell your story and give those guys, students, a possibility of a different career path. So, I just throw that out there. I mean, hats off what you do day in and day out. It's a lot like what we do as legislators. People will never understand the walk you take every day as a small business owner. So thank you very much for your commitment to the community and what you do every day.
It was a pleasure. I will say that after we closed our business, our people were all working somewhere within days, because, and that affirms the points that Muriel brought up, but it's also a testament to their work ethic and abilities.
And your leadership.
Perhaps.
Thank you, Representative Cook. We will be moving on to a question by Representative Dunbar.
Thank you, Mayor. First off, Mr. Moyer, having spent my career before here in construction, and I ran a commercial plumbing contractor. I was CFO of. I understand your struggles with cash. Cash is king. I know we all say that cash is king, no matter how big, how small you are. And lack of funding from CDBG money is a concern. I would hope that would not be the case for liquid fuels, because liquid fuels dollars should flow directly.
That was not a problem.
Okay, all right. So, and I think that's something that Representative Dowling could look at as far as Fayette County, because I know in Westmoreland, it's handled at the county level. In addition to that, Mr. Rannick, you're not small potatoes, believe me. Everybody has a role. My question, you had said about your growth, your union hall sometime being completely full or completely empty.
Yeah.
So when you reach that point in time, when you're bidding work or have jobs and the union hall is empty, do you bypass work? Is there times when out-of-state contractors come in and do it as opposed to you, or out-of-state employees? I mean, let's be honest, we're competing with West Virginia right here. We're right on the border. I'm just curious, when your union hall gets tapped, what do you do? Or do you not bid to work, or does it go to somebody else?
Go ahead.
West Virginia, they will give us some guys out of their local, or we work some overtime to, try to keep up, or like you said, not bid some projects because you can't man them.
And we've had that happen too, especially in manufacturing, where we have to pass on it because you have so many guys out doing your construction work. You can't always have, we're stripping people here and there.
And does that put you at a competitive disadvantage, maybe, if you have to budget in overtime on bids and things like that?
Yeah, it does. Absolutely.
So certainly, workforce development and having more people available would make
absolutely.
a world of difference all the way down. All right, thank you.
I'm going to start with Mr. Moyer. You had talked about your workforce and things like this, and I would think in both of your career paths, it sounds to me you have a workforce that actually enjoys what it is that they do. You've got them to buy in. In my interview process, oftentimes I'll ask people, do you want a job or do you want a check? To me, there's a little bit difference. If it's just a matter of coming to get a little bit of revenue and go enjoy the weekend, it's a lot different. How do we, and I personally think this is part of our overall problem, is how do we encourage, or how do you get your employees to really buy into what it is that you do, celebrate their own creativity? I watch tin workers. It's pretty impressive what they do. I had to get a special piece made for a duct I was doing in a house I was redoing recently. And it was small, but there's a lot of bends in that. And whether they're pop riveting it or soldering it, whatever they had to do to manufacture that. But at the end of the day, it was a work of art. I was screwing around with some flashlight I had trying to make something myself. But I really appreciated the craftsmanship it took to make that. It was basically reducing and adapting from a square to a circle and around a corner and some other things. Do you think that's becoming a lost art? Not the particular task, that the lost art of it, people really taking the pride of earning that paycheck and wanting to do that and being proud to bring that home to their family.
I think that's a really timely and relevant question in our world today. And I think that I can only speak from the perspective of a very small business.
But you somehow have cultivated that within your own business.
Or we did. For one thing, I will tell you that I always tried to avoid using the word I.
Sure.
Unless something went wrong. Then sometimes I would use that word. But I believe somehow in trying to make it a we, a team, every opportunity. And I think that's helpful. I think that's easier to do, or for a person to take pride, to buy in, as you said, is easier to do in a small business, because in our particular work, I mean, everyone was involved in every facet, except when I put the number on the bid, I did that myself.
Right.
But from then on, everybody was involved in the whole process. And you could feel like you were a part of this achievement, this accomplishment. Other work in bigger businesses or in different kinds of industries, you're just doing a little narrow part of it. And it's, I think, very difficult to see the end result or to take pride in a team effort. I did look for opportunities when, we had to measure how much material we needed or something. Or even more relevant, I came into it, as I said, I was doing some other things, and I came back into it, and some of the people were more experienced than I was, although I did it when I was in school, when I was a kid. But I had no problem asking their opinion or what do you think we ought to do here? Can we have your ideas? And I think that's very important, to try to somehow let people invest their own thoughts and expertise in the
End product?
bigger picture, end product. Yeah. It's easier to do in a small company like we were than it is in big ones, but there's probably elements of that can be translocated.
I was in a middle manager in a hospital, not a belabor thing, but environmental services supervisor. Basically, we were in charge of the cleaning crew and setting things up. And to try to encourage people every day to come back and clean the same room they just cleaned yesterday that didn't look dirty is not the easiest thing to do. And finally, I tried to make them realize that they were the number one priority line of defense for infection. And what they did, even though tangibly we couldn't see a lot of the results of it, was what hopefully ensured those patients' lack of infection post-surgery, and everything that everyone else did, it depended on them making sure the environment. And that was a mind changer for a lot of them, that it wasn't just mopping another floor, washing their table off. We had them cleaning stuff that never looked dirty. But it's a hard thing to teach. And you see it in your own work. The guys that are hungry, they're going to produce. And you don't have to stay on them because they see the joy of making something. I still like to manufacture something. I still like to produce something. I still walk around State College and say, I painted that house, I painted that house, I painted that house. My kids get tired of hearing it.
Yep.
I just think we have to find a way that we start instilling the pride in earning a check. Not getting a check, earning a check. Gentlemen, I don't know if you have anything that you want to respond to any of that. You guys are manufacturing something every day. To me, that's what we talk about, build America. Manufacturing, fabricating something.
So we really do try to have a team environment. Like everybody, it might sound silly, but like every Friday, as long as nobody gets hurt or anything, we have a pizza party every Friday.
I'm in.
Okay, listen, I know it might sound silly, but honestly, that brings up morale to people.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Because it's something for them to look forward to. Yeah, it's just you BSing with them and getting on their level.
Labor management, everybody's involved in that?
So the whole labor force is, yes. And then I do, like in my office, same type of thing. Like we have a really great week. I treat everybody, you know what I mean? And it goes a long way, honestly. It's little things like that, but it has to be, like he was saying earlier, it has to be a team effort. People have to realize that. You're not just working for the company, you're a part of the company. And you're making a difference because you're a part of it.
Great points. Yeah. Other questions from any members? Representative Matthew Dowling will round us out and also adjourn us when he's done. Gentlemen, thank you very much as the chairman for being here. Your testimony is phenomenal, and your enthusiasm for the work is great.
So one of the things that we were discussing at the tail end of our last panel was a changing workforce. Individuals who maybe would rather be working in a more urban environment, or individuals that have a different expectation from their employment reward system. I know that studies show right now that younger employees are not just looking for a paycheck, although we know how important it is for a family-sustaining job. They're also looking for some type of job satisfaction. How are you working with a changing workforce that has different ideals or belief systems, and are you being successful in gardening those employees and making them real assets to your organization?
Yeah, so we're not like 100% successful with that, like any other company. But I would say we're definitely really successful with it. The biggest thing is when we bring somebody in, we really want to make sure that wherever we put them, they're actually successful at doing it, meaning they actually enjoy the work and that they actually can do the work to a good rate. Other than that, we try to offer the best packages too to keep employee retention. So you want to offer a good health benefit, you want to offer some supplemental benefits, 401k. We try to do things like that also too to make it that it's more than just a paycheck, that you are investing into the company as well. So hopefully that answers your question.
Also, I believe all three of you are local to the region. Is that correct? Being local to the region, you have your businesses and started your businesses in this area. Why would you say that Fayette County and furthermore the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania is an area where businesses should want to do business? And then conversely, what are some reasons that it would be attractive for you to be in your same business in another state?
Well, definitely for Fayette County, I mean, we're a union company. So this is really, to me, the heart of like the union, is Pennsylvania. Prior to this, I worked for my uncle at Anthony Crane, and we were there for, my goodness, he was there for over 40-something years. He did that. So it's just one of those things that's a union thing. The only benefit to us would be going out of Pennsylvania, would just be to be able to compete with the right-to-work states, so like West Virginia, North Carolina. Sometimes we lose some manufacturing jobs just because we can't compete because the rate is so much lower. It's nothing against our union, it's just that's how it works, so.
Something that's peculiar to Pennsylvania that I think benefited our business when we were working is the great number of local governments we have, which I hope I don't offend any friends of mine, but it does have some built-in inefficiencies, the proliferation of local governments that we have. But it did enable us we were small, so we could work for this township and this township and this township, where someplace where roads were administered by the county, you would have to be a much bigger company to take on that. So that particular thing was something that enabled us to do what we did.
My final question would be towards government regulation, specifically at the state level. Were there any regulatory requirements that hindered your ability to do business or cost you financially that you thought were perhaps overreaching?
There's nothing particular I can think of.
No, I can't either.
Does E-Verify have anything to do with the state? It's federal, right? I understand the reason for E-Verify. We laid our guys off every winter. We didn't lay asphalt in the winter. Called the same guys back in the spring. You have to go through the E-Verify process to make sure they are a U.S. citizen and eligible to work in the United States. I knew most of them since I grew up with them. I knew they were citizens, but we had to go through this process, which...
Annually you had to do that?
Oh, yes.
Every time they come back?
Every time they came back, or annually, whichever is more frequent. And the point, one of the points was that we only used E-Verify every spring when we would start our seasons back up. And never went back to that website for the next year in our particular situation. And our passwords expired and all that. And then it took 2 days of time that I didn't have to set that all up again and then verify everybody's work eligibility that I've known all my life. So E-Verify is a hindrance for some businesses in some situations.
Probably more efficient way to do that.
Probably.
Great suggestion.
We dealt with a lot of trucking regulations, but, I have a little 2-year-old granddaughter that's on the road with my daughter, so I can understand and appreciate the need for that, and I'm not going to complain about it.
Well, we thank you all for your testimony and for being with us. To my fellow members, I would open up the floor quickly if anyone has any final comments. Well, without that, we will adjourn today. We will be, just for everyone's information, our Transportation Committee, who was in Charleroi this morning, will be joining us shortly, and our members will be out looking at parts of Fayette County, primarily in the mountain area. Ben, I know you had mentioned it's good for them to see that area. We're going to be looking at a number of public-private partnerships, as well as some assets that are bringing economic boom through tourism to our region. And tomorrow, we will be spending a great deal of time in Ohio Powell and looking at the Gap Trail. So
Good.
I just wanted to let you know we are taking time to do that. And I truly believe that my colleagues who are not close to this area, which we do have some that are on our tourism tour this morning from Philadelphia and from the other side of the state, I believe showing them the assets and the way that we do business here in Fayette County will help them as we push legislation that is specifically needed in southwestern Pennsylvania. So I thank my colleagues for coming out. With that, Chairman, I believe we're adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.